The Xrith had watched the stars for centuries, tracking the movements of countless civilizations, watching for any sign of the Terran expeditionary force. They had heard the stories from the far reaches of the galaxy, and now it seemed the time had come. The humans were on their doorstep. The planet of Xrith had long been a haven of peace, a world untouched by the chaos of war. But the legends spoke of a species whose thirst for survival was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't that the humans were the most powerful, it was something else entirely, something darker, something primal. The Xrith had learned to fear what they did not understand, and they feared the humans for their very nature. They had seen what happened when an enemy underestimated them. It was always the same: they would fight back, with a strength no one predicted, and then they would never stop. It was this relentless pursuit that kept the Xrith in constant fear. They weren't concerned with losing a battle. No, they were concerned with losing their lives in the end. The first contact had been cordial. The humans had landed with their usual manners, their scientific curiosity, and willingness to learn. They exchanged pleasantries and shared knowledge. But the Xrith knew better. They had prepared for this moment for generations. Every inch of the human language. They studied every piece of their technology. They analyzed, and yet there was something they couldn't quantify, something the ancient texts failed to explain: the human will to survive and to conquer, no matter the cost. For the humans, it wasn't about winning a war, it was about never giving up, and that's what made them dangerous. So when the Xrith saw the humans' technology and their calm faces as they walked through the gates of the city, they decided to test them. It would be a simple thing, a small strike, a way to gauge how strong these humans truly were. The Xrith had mastered stealth and strike tactics. They would catch the humans off guard and take them down before they even knew what was happening. They sent their warriors out under the cover of darkness to infiltrate the human camp, to disable their defenses, to take them by surprise. The first shot would be fired before the humans could even respond. They would fall swiftly and silently. No one would even know what happened. At least that was the plan. But the humans weren't as unaware as the Xrith thought they would be. The first warning came when the Xrith warriors triggered the camp's alarm systems, and in that instant everything changed. The humans didn't panic, they didn't scatter, they moved as one, as though every soldier had anticipated the attack before it even began. The Xrith watched as the humans fought back, not with desperation, but with calm precision. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The humans had turned the tables in an instant, and before long the Xrith realized they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated the humans, and now they would pay the price. The first battle had been lost, but the war had only just begun. The Xrith had expected to overwhelm the humans with their initial attack, but the humans had quickly turned the tide, and in a matter of hours they were on the offensive. It wasn't just the weapons the humans had at their disposal, it was their uncanny ability to adapt and respond to every new tactic. The Xrith tried their stealth missions, had turned into full-scale firefights. Their surprise ambushes had become open confrontations. The Xrith had never seen a species that could adjust so rapidly to changing circumstances. The humans didn't panic, they didn't make mistakes, they simply reacted. And even when their equipment was damaged or their plans were disrupted, they found a way to keep fighting in ways no one could predict. There was no weakness to exploit. They were everywhere, all at once and nowhere at all. The Xrith couldn't predict them, they couldn't control the battlefield. Every time they thought they had a strategic advantage, the humans would turn it against them. The Xrith warriors, who had once taken pride in their ambushes, found themselves the ones ambushed. The surprise strikes they had relied on were now met with counterattacks. Before they could even retreat, the Xrith had always believed they were the perfect predators. Their speed and precision made them a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. But they had never faced an enemy that could endure in such a way. They had never faced an enemy that would not give up no matter the cost. The humans weren't like other species who might surrender or negotiate when pressed. The humans had one goal, and that goal was simple: to survive, to win, and they would do whatever it took to achieve that. The Xrith had underestimated them, because they had never seen this kind of resolve before. The Xrith commanders gathered in their war room, bewildered by the turn of events. Their warriors were disoriented. Their ambushes had failed, and their plans had been shredded. The humans had not only fought back, but seemed to be getting stronger. With every passing hour, they analyzed the situation with growing desperation. They tried to predict the humans' next move, But there was no pattern, nothing to follow, everything was chaos. But the kind of chaos the humans thrived in. The humans didn't need order, they didn't need a plan, they had instincts that allowed them to improvise and adapt in ways that no other species could match. The Xrith tried to recalibrate their strategy, but it was already too late. The humans had taken control of the high ground and were now pushing toward the center of the city. They fought in waves, but each wave seemed more relentless than the last. Every corner the Xrith turned brought them face to face with another human soldier, another obstacle they couldn't overcome. The city that had once been a symbol of Xrith's peace was now a battlefield, and the humans had no intention of stopping. They would take it all inch by inch until they had nothing left to fight for. The Xrith had thought they were hunting the humans, but now they realized the truth. They were the prey, and the humans were the hunters, and this hunt would not end until the humans had what they wanted, or until there was no one left to fight. As the battle raged on, the Xrith were beginning to realize the full extent of their mistake. They had expected a quick victory, a clean sweep of the humans, but the humans weren't like other species. They didn't fight like the others did. They didn't fight for honor or glory. They fought for survival, and that made them unpredictable. The Xrith had tried to divide the human forces, to isolate them and strike at their weaknesses, but every attempt had failed. The humans had no weaknesses. They adapted faster than the Xrith could ever have imagined, shifting tactics on the fly, responding with strategies the Xrith hadn't considered, and using terrain and resources in ways that defied all logic. The Xrith had thrown everything they had at the humans, hoping to break their lines, to drive them back. But instead, they were pushed further and further into retreat. They had underestimated the tenacity of these creatures. The humans were relentless, and every time the Xrith thought they had gained an advantage, the humans would turn the tables in an instant. The city, once a thriving hub of Xrith civilization, was now a war zone. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled under the weight of the fighting. Streets became rivers of destruction, and the air was thick with smoke and the sound of constant battle. Desperation began to creep into the hearts of the Xrith leaders. They had expected to overwhelm the humans with precision and strength, but now they were the ones being hunted. The humans had taken control of key locations, cutting off their escape routes and slowly tightening the noose around them. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to regroup. The Xrith were being driven into the wilderness, where their numbers were steadily dwindling. Among the Xrith commanders, a sense of panic began to set in. They had been told for generations about the relentless nature of humanity, but they had not fully understood the warning. They had thought it was mere myth, a story told to frighten young warriors. Now they knew it was truth. The humans didn't know when to stop. They didn't understand the meaning of surrender. Each defeat only seemed to fuel their determination, and their willingness to endure against all odds was terrifying. The Xrith had made their first mistake in underestimating the humans, but their second mistake was believing they could ever break them. The humans didn't fight for victory in the way the Xrith thought they would. They'd fought to survive, to endure, and they didn't stop fighting until there was no enemy left standing. The Xrith had thought they could crush the humans quickly, but now they found themselves being crushed instead. As the days dragged on and the Xrith forces were pushed into smaller and smaller pockets, they began to realize the true nature of the enemy they faced. The humans didn't want their planet or their resources. They didn't care about conquering anything. What they cared about was victory, and they would stop at nothing to achieve it. The more the Xrith resisted, the harder the humans fought. The longer they fought, the more the Xrith began to understand. The humans didn't fight to win battles. They fought to ensure that their enemies would never, ever rise again. And the Xrith, despite their best efforts, were slowly but surely learning that lesson the hard way. As the days turned into weeks, the Xrith forces began to fracture under the constant pressure. The once proud warriors, accustomed to striking with deadly efficiency, found themselves on the defensive. The humans didn't just fight. They were everywhere. There was no safe place, no corner of the planet that the Xrith could hide in. Every retreat was met with a human counterattack. Every effort to regroup was shattered by a new wave of human fighters. The Krith had never seen such determination in any enemy, and it was wearing them down, piece by piece. The leadership of the Krith was in disarray. Their military strategy, honed over centuries, had failed them. The humans didn't play by the same rules. They didn't rely on conventional warfare. They didn't obey the usual patterns. There was no predicting them. One moment they would strike with overwhelming force. The next they would disappear, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. The humans fought not only with strength but with cunning, using the terrain, the environment, and even their own wounded as tools to confuse and overwhelm the Krith. For every Krith warrior that fell, 2 more would take their place. But the humans were like a tide that never receded. It wasn't the Krith numbers that were dwindling, but their morale. It wasn't just the bodies piling up. It was the crushing realization that they could not escape, that every attempt to break free from the humans' grasp only tightened the noose. There were whispers among the Krith warriors that perhaps they should surrender, that perhaps it would be better to end the conflict before they lost everything. But those whispers were quickly silenced by the harsh realities of the situation. There was no surrender in the humans' vocabulary. Once the hunt began, it didn't stop until there was no prey left. In the heart of the city, the humans had established a foothold that seemed to grow by the hour. They didn't just occupy buildings, they fortified them. They turned Krith landmarks into strongholds, using the very structures of the city to trap the invaders. The Krith tried to retake these strongholds, but each attempt only ended in failure. The humans were too resourceful, too relentless. They turned the Krith's own technology against them, hacking their communication networks, jamming their signals, and making it impossible for the Krith to coordinate their forces. Every time the Krith thought they were close to a victory, they found themselves pushed back, their ranks thinning under the constant pressure. The Krith began to realize that the humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to erase all possibility of future conflict. Their goal wasn't to conquer the planet, but to ensure that no one would ever challenge them again. The humans weren't interested in ruling. They were interested in survival. And as the Krith continued to fall back, abandoning more and more territory, they began to understand the grim truth. The humans didn't care about the planet's resources. They didn't care about the riches or the power that came with conquest. What they cared about was the destruction of any who dared to challenge them. In the forests outside the city, the last of the Krith's military forces began to regroup, but even as they did, they knew the inevitable was coming. The humans were closing in, methodically hunting them down, ensuring that no one would escape. It was only a matter of time before the final strike came, and the Krith would be forced to face the consequences of underestimating the humans. The hunt was on, and the humans would not stop until every last Krith who had attacked them had been found. The Krith had retreated to the wilderness, hoping to regroup and mount a final defense, but there was no real hope left. Their numbers had dwindled, and their morale had shattered. What was left of their army was a fractured remnant, scattered in hiding, barely holding on to the belief that they could survive. Every effort to escape the humans' grasp was futile. The humans were relentless, their presence like a shadow that crept into every corner of the planet, searching, always searching. There was no refuge. There was no sanctuary. And there was no way to outrun them. In the thick forests, the Krith tried to regroup, digging in, preparing for one last stand. They had set traps, fortified positions, and relied on their natural stealth to remain hidden. They knew the humans were coming. They could feel it. The air was thick with the tension of a final confrontation. But as the hours dragged on and the humans didn't appear, the Krith began to question whether they had miscalculated again. Where were the humans? What were they waiting for? Unbeknownst to the Krith, the humans were already on their trail. They didn't need to be told where to go. The humans could track their enemies like no other species in the galaxy. It wasn't a matter of finding them. It was a matter of time. Every moment the Krith thought they were safe, the humans were getting closer. They moved through the forest like ghosts, silent and patient, always waiting, always watching. They knew the Xrith would make mistakes. They knew that sooner or later they would reveal themselves. The Xrith leaders, once confident in their ability to outsmart their enemies, now found themselves in disarray. They had been so sure of their superiority, of their technology, their tactics, their knowledge of the planet, but nothing had prepared them for the persistence of humanity. The Xrith had been bred for war, but they were not prepared for an enemy who could not be broken, who would not stop until the last of them was found. They had hoped that their stealth and cunning would allow them to survive, but it had only delayed the inevitable. And then, when the first Xrith warrior fell, it was as though a dam had broken. The humans were everywhere. They had been there all along, waiting for the right moment. The Xrith fought back with everything they had, but it was hopeless. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and outlasted. Every step they took in the forest was met with the sound of human footsteps behind them. Every hiding spot they found was already known to the humans. And one by one, the last remnants of the Xrith forces were picked off. In a final desperate attempt to escape, the remaining Xrith leaders made a last-ditch effort to send a distress signal to their allies. But the humans were ahead of them once again. They had already disabled the Xrith communications network. There was no escape. No reinforcements would come. The Xrith were alone, and the humans were closing in fast. The hunt was nearing its end. The humans had proven that they didn't just fight to win. They fought to ensure that their enemies would never rise again. And the Xrith, broken and scattered, had become the hunted. The humans would not stop until every last one of them had been found. And in that moment, the Xrith realized the truth of the ancient warning. If you attack the humans, they will hunt you without end. As the days wore on, the last pockets of Xrith resistance began to collapse under the weight of the human pursuit. The remaining warriors, once confident in their ability to disappear into the wilderness, were slowly realizing that there was nowhere left to hide. The humans had become more than just a military force. They had become a force of nature, relentless and unyielding. They moved with a purpose that seemed almost predatory, and no matter where the Xrith turned, they found themselves cornered. The forests that had once seemed like a refuge now felt like a trap, and the hills that they had used for cover were no longer safe. Every attempt to regroup or change their strategy was met with swift retaliation. The Xrith had once prided themselves on their ability to think and planned several moves ahead, but against the humans, their strategies were useless. They had underestimated their enemy's ability to adapt and evolve in real time. Where the Xrith relied on elaborate schemes, the humans relied on their instincts. They didn't need to think ahead. They only needed to survive. And in this, they had proven more dangerous than anything the Xrith had ever faced. The Xrith had tried to flee to the mountain ranges, hoping that the difficult terrain would slow the humans down, but they had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt to any environment. The mountains were no barrier for them. The humans had already secured the lower passes and were now closing in on the high ground. There was no escape, no place left to run. The Xrith had become trapped in a net, and the humans were tightening the ropes. The last of the Xrith leaders gathered what little remained of their forces in a small valley, hidden deep within the mountains. They had no illusions left. They knew that their time was running out, but they couldn't bring themselves to surrender. Not yet. Not while there was a single warrior still able to fight. They made plans to make a final stand, hoping to take as many humans with them as they could. They would die fighting. It was the only way they could preserve their honor. But even as they made their final preparations, they could hear the humans approaching. The sound of footsteps, the rustle of leaves, the unmistakable feeling of being hunted. In the distance, a lone human scout appeared at the edge of the valley. The Xrith tried to rally their forces, but it was too late. The humans had already found them. The scout was not alone for long. Within moments, the humans were flooding into the valley from all sides. The Xrith tried to fight, but they were outnumbered, and they were exhausted. Their weapons were no match for the humans' unrelenting assault. The battle was over before it had truly begun. One by one, the Xrith warriors fell, overwhelmed by the sheer persistence of their enemies. The humans didn't show mercy. They didn't offer terms. They didn't waste time. They fought until every last Xrith who had participated in the attack had been captured or killed. The hunt had come to its grim conclusion. The Xrith had been hunted down, their resistance broken, their forces annihilated. The humans had not only won, they had ensured that the Xrith would never threaten them again. No matter how many times the Xrith tried to hide, the humans would always find them. The warning had been clear from the beginning. Attack the humans, and they will hunt you without end. As the survivors of the Xrith forces were brought before the humans, they had no words left. They had once been a proud species, feared and respected across the galaxy, but now they were nothing. Their empire had crumbled, their warriors had been broken, and their very name had become a symbol of what happens when one underestimates humanity. There was no victory song to be sung, no celebration to be had. The humans simply turned and left, their task complete, their hunt finished. And in the vast emptiness of space, the Xrith learned the hard truth. The legends were real, and they were the ones who had been hunted. The survivors of the Xrith, those few who had managed to evade the humans' relentless pursuit, fled to the farthest corners of the galaxy, hoping to rebuild and lick their wounds. They had learned their lesson the hard way. The humans were not just another species to be dealt with and dismissed. They were a force of nature, something the Xrith had never faced before, something that could not be outrun or outsmarted. The memories of their defeat haunted them, lingering like a dark cloud over the remnants of their people. The Xrith had always prided themselves on their ability to learn, to adapt, to conquer, but now they were facing an enemy that would not allow them the time or the space to do any of those things. No matter where they went, no matter how far they traveled, they knew the humans would follow. There was no escaping them. The hunt didn't end with the last battle on the planet. It would follow the Xrith wherever they went, across the stars, across galaxies. The humans had proven that they didn't just fight for victory. They fought to ensure that their enemies could never rise again. The surviving Xrith tried to hide their shame behind defiant words, but even they could not deny the truth. They were being hunted. Every time they thought they had found refuge in some distant star system, they would find their technology sabotaged, their communications cut off, their ships disabled. It was clear that the humans had found them. And now they were making sure that there would be no future for the Xrith. No allies would come. No reinforcements would arrive. Every attempt to rebuild their forces was met with the same result: relentless human pursuit. Desperate, the Xrith reached out to neighboring species, hoping that some alien race might come to their aid, offering a way to push back against the human threat. They knew it would be a long shot, but they were out of options. However, every attempt to forge new alliances was met with silence, or worse, rejection. The rumors of the humans' hunting ways had spread far and wide, and no one wanted to be the next target. The Xrith's enemies were all too aware of the price of defying the humans. The Xrith soon realized that they were alone in the universe. Their empire, once vast and powerful, had crumbled, and now they were scattered, a broken people, trying to escape a fate that was already sealed. The humans had made it clear: any race that dared to challenge them would find no mercy. The humans had become a symbol of something more than just a military power. They had become a force that could not be reasoned with, a force that would never allow its enemies to grow strong again. And so, the Xrith were forced to scatter even further, their once proud civilization now nothing more than a shadow of its former self. They hid among the stars, trying to outrun the inevitable, but deep down, they knew the truth. The humans were coming. They would never stop hunting. The Xrith could never escape the consequences of their actions. They would live the rest of their existence knowing that the humans were out there, tracking them, waiting for the moment to strike again. It was a fate they could not escape, and it was a fate that would follow them to the ends of the galaxy. The legend of the humans had spread far beyond the Xrith, becoming a tale told across the stars. It was a warning to all who would dare challenge humanity. If you attack the humans, they will hunt you without end. And those who had learned this lesson too late would be left to wonder how their world might have been different if they had never crossed the line. But for the Xrith, it was already too late. Years passed, and the Xrith had become little more than a distant memory, a cautionary tale whispered among the stars. Their once glorious empire was reduced to scattered survivors hiding in the farthest corners of the galaxy, each one haunted by the same thought. The humans were still out there, watching, waiting. The galaxy had moved on, but the legend of humanity's relentless pursuit had taken root in the minds of all who had heard it. No species dared challenge the humans now. Those who had once been enemies, those who had once looked down on humanity, now regarded them with a mixture of fear and awe. The humans had proven that they were more than just conquerors. They were hunters, and the galaxy was their domain. But despite the humans' unwavering pursuit of those who threatened them, there were whispers in the dark corners of the galaxy. Whispers that the humans had become something else. There were stories that spoke of humanity's quiet rise in the political sphere. Their empire was not one of domination, but of survival. The humans didn't seek to rule the stars. They sought to make sure they never had to fight like that again. They had learned from their wars, from their history. They had learned that the true power was not in conquering, but in ensuring that no one could ever challenge you again. It wasn't about victory. It was about survival. And that was something the Xrith had failed to understand. The humans had built alliances, formed partnerships, and slowly, methodically, they had expanded their reach. Not through force, but through trust, through diplomacy. They had built an empire of sorts, but it wasn't one forged in blood. It was built on the unshakable belief that survival was more important than any victory. The humans were not the invaders now. They were the protectors, the guardians of the galaxy. No one dared cross them. The galaxy had learned to respect their strength, their resolve, and the unspoken rule that once you earned their wrath, you would never escape it. As the decades went by, the survivors of the Xrith faded into legend. Some lived in exile, some had been lost to the void, and some had disappeared entirely. The humans didn't pursue them anymore, not in the same way. The message had been sent. The galaxy had learned what happened when you crossed humanity, and the humans didn't need to hunt anymore. The fear they had instilled in others was enough. The Xrith had been the first to learn that lesson, but they wouldn't be the last. From the ashes of the Xrith, new stories began to rise. Stories of those who had once been enemies, who now lived in peace under the protection of humanity's watchful eyes. The humans had shown the galaxy that they could not be defeated. And in return, the galaxy had learned that there were worse things than war. There was the endless pursuit, the hunt that never stopped, and the knowledge that once you became the prey, there was no escape. The galaxy had changed, and it had learned one simple, undeniable truth. Never underestimate the humans. The price of underestimating them was too high. The Xrith had learned it the hard way. The universe had watched. And now, no one dared to challenge the humans. The hunt had come to an end, but the lesson would last forever. And so, the legend of humanity was cemented in the stars, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as hunters who never stopped. And the galaxy, knowing the cost of crossing them, would never forget the warning. Attack the humans, and they will hunt you without end.